Holy moly! Did somebody say mole? That's what I'm making today on Dishing with Joe. So welcome back to the channel. I want to let you know that mole is a very complex dish. I'm sure some of you have gone to restaurants, you've always wondered how to make it. You probably want to know how to make it. I have a simple way of making it. There is a lot of ways to make mole. A lot of families go in different kinds of directions. I'm going to show you my easy steps, and the mole that you're going to taste is really good. So I have twice the amount of chicken, which probably you'll be using. You'll probably be using 4 pieces if you're by yourself, so that you have extra later on, or you're going to be cooking up to 6 pieces because you have a family of 4, and you know the other 2 pieces people fight over. I'm using about 8 pieces of chicken thighs. You can use breasts, you can use wings. So I want to go over what the ingredients are for mole. Now, if you are looking at a traditional mole, mole is a paste. It's made from nuts, chocolate, all sorts of spices, and this is ground up. Sometimes it's ground by hand, sometimes it's ground by a machine. But if you want to kind of compare it to something else, I would compare it as close to maybe Indian curry. It's kind of weird. I love all sorts of international dishes, and I always come back to those international dishes and I kind of compare it to mole because it's kind of weird. Every country has their own mole kind of dish. People have curry, people have mole, people have other kinds of dishes that are similar. The only thing with mole is that you're using chocolate and you're using some sort of peanuts or nut in it that is ground up. So I want to go over the ingredients of my dish. So I am using Doña Maria's mole. It's basically the only mole I have in the stores here. This is Ibarra chocolate. This is semi-sweet chocolate, dark chocolate that is. I put a little bit of peanut butter in my mole, and then we're gonna doctor it up with some chili powder and some cinnamon, because I want a little bit of cinnamon in that mole. I just want to say that Doña Maria and Ibarra chocolate are not sponsoring this dish. This is just something that I use for my own cooking, and they're great substitutes, and there are others that you might like, but this is what's available in my store. I have a pot here. I already have some water in there. We're going to turn up the heat, and that is going to be at a 6. You can do it higher if you want to cook it quicker, but we are adding our chicken now. So we're adding chicken. I have a lot of chicken here because I am feeding a lot of people, but you'll have maybe 4 pieces of chicken or 6 pieces of chicken. You can do them boneless, you can do them skinless, you can cut chicken into squares, but I really wouldn't suggest doing that until your whole pieces of chicken have been cooked through. Then you're going to take them out of the water, let them cool, and then cut them into chunks, however big you want them, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so the chicken's almost done. Remember, we went ahead and put it in the pot with some water. We're boiling it. You can see here the chicken is nice and cooked through, and this is what we want. We're going to go ahead and take this out of the pot and put it to the side, because we're going to be using the chicken broth for our mole sauce. Now, depending on how much liquid is in the pot, I might take some out, because the mole paste is super thick and it's a little hard to work with, but this is all done in one pot, so you don't have to worry about making mole in different kinds of pots or pans. Okay. So this is all the chicken. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and skim the top of that water because there's some impurities from the chicken, such as it looks like it's just rendered pieces of the marrow in the water. So I don't want that in my mole. Okay, so if you have a ladle or a some kind of utensil that can skim water, that's what you're going to be using. And we're going to be taking this out, all out of the water. See all that? That's what we don't want in the pot. So we're going to go ahead and skim all the top of the water and take all those impurities out. All right. What I've done is taken out half of the liquid, which is the chicken stock, and I place it aside because I don't know if I'm going to be needing all of it yet. I'm sure I will, so we'll be adding portions of the liquid into the mole, but we want to have it more manageable. So we're going to reduce the liquid by half in the pot. So let's go ahead and start adding some ingredients. So we're going to start with the mole. This is the mole. It looks like a big chunk of chocolate, which is the paste. And we're going to go ahead and add that in. If you are a person that likes to go to Mexican or Latin American bodegas or stores and they make their own mole, that's great. Use that because that's really good mole. But here we go. We're going to go ahead and add that mole in. Now, it takes a while for the mole to break apart. So we're going to go ahead and let that simmer. I have it at number 4 on the electric stove, or what you want to do is bring it under medium flame or a little bit under a medium flame. So let's go ahead and wait, and we're going to wait for that to come apart and start making the sauce. So here we have the disc of semi-sweet chocolate. It's dark chocolate. So I like to break it in the packet because if you break it outside of the packet, you're going to be making a big mess. This has little indentations here, as you can see. It's 4 quarters of the chocolate. Actually, I think there's more than that. If you're making 4 to 6 pieces of chicken of mole, you're going to be using 1 disc of this semi-sweet dark chocolate. Now, again, I'm going to show you how to break this in the packet and not all over the place, I hope. Okay, so basically you're going to put this in the palm of your hand, and you're going to slam it on the corner of your counter, just like that. So it broke in half, and I'm going to break it again in quarters. There we go. So now I have 4 pieces of chocolate in here, and I'm going to show you. You can try to cut this. I've tried to do that before, and it just goes all over the place. So there we go. Here's the chocolate, and it's actually really good chocolate. This is really good to make hot chocolate if you like for the holidays. It's really, really yummy chocolate. But again, it's semi-sweet, and it's not like your regular hot chocolate. It actually brings out a lot more spices because I think they have cinnamon in here and other types of chocolate. So this is what we're going to be using. Okay, let's go over to the pot and put this in. So we're going to go ahead and add in the chocolate, and as you can see, the mole has already started to integrate with the water, and the chocolate is going to also come apart. Now, I said water, but it's actually the chicken broth. We are going to start adding the peanut butter. The peanut butter is half a cup of peanut butter. If you are doing less chicken, again, you want to make sure that you have half a cup of peanut butter instead. Or you can even do a 1/4 cup, depending on how nutty you want this to be. What I want is I want a little bit of nuttiness in my mole. I like that. Also, yeah, I'm putting in chocolate, but it's not gonna be so sweet. I'm sure there's a couple of viewers thinking, oh, that's a lot of chocolate. That's gonna be really sweet. Mine's gonna be a little bit sweet and a little bit spicy. Now I have a tablespoon of red chili powder and a tablespoon of cinnamon. I'm gonna add that in also. I may need more because again, I'm making double, but this is for you guys. You can add, if you're making less chicken, you're going to add a teaspoon of chili powder and a teaspoon of cinnamon. So I have a whisk here, and we're gonna start whisking in the ingredients and kind of moving around the chocolate and the mole. The consistency on the bottom of the pot is really thick. That means that the mole hasn't melted. See, there it is right there. That's not the chocolate, that's the mole. And we want to make sure that that mole all comes apart and becomes a sauce. Now, as you can see, my sauce is getting pretty thick. This is how I like my sauces, but it's going to get thicker because there's still a lot more mole to integrate with that chicken stock. So I may be using some more chicken stock actually, because there is a lot of mole here. Okay, so as you can see, this is starting to boil up. It kind of looks like a volcano. But I lowered the temperature to a number 2. I don't want it to have it come to a boil. So we just want to simmer it. I'm gonna start adding some chicken stock because this is getting really thick. And so the leftover chicken stock that I have, I'm just gonna add it in and whisk it in. That's filling a little bit better. Once you start whisking, you can feel the consistency of your sauce. So this is starting to get a little bit more saucier than it was because it was pretty thick. But the mole still hasn't all come apart. There's still little bits of pieces there. So we're still gonna cook it down, reduce it, probably add a little bit more chicken stock. But this is looking good. If you went to culinary school, this kind of thickness is called nappe, all right? But this is basically the thickness of sauce that you want. This is gonna cover your chicken. So some people put chicken on the plate and then they ladle this mole on top. I like my chicken integrated in my mole, so we're gonna be placing the chicken pieces back into it and we're going to let it cook some more. Now, I want to taste this mole. I haven't added salt yet. I just want to see where I'm standing with the salt. Again, you want to salt this to your preference. What I'm tasting is the peanuts from the peanut butter. I'm tasting the dark chocolate from the Mexican chocolate. I'm also tasting the chili powder that I put in and the cinnamon. So all those flavors are coming out along with everything else that was placed in the mole when the mole was made at the factory. Or if you're getting homemade mole that somebody makes by hand, you're going to be tasting that too. If you get mole from somebody that makes it by hand, you don't have to doctor it. Unless you know the person and you've had their mole, then again, you might want to doctor it. But I do want to doctor this because I want different flavors of the mole to come out. From that tasting, I know that it needed salt, so we're going to put in some pinches of salt in here. This is a big amount of mole, so I'm going to do 3 pinches of salt right now and see where we stand from there. We're going to go ahead and whisk that in. And we're going to taste it. The flavor is coming out with that salt. So that's why you want to make sure that you are tasting it before you salt it and see how much salt you want to put in. I put in 3 pinches of salt. That's coming to the consistency of flavor that I want. I might leave it like that. I might add a little bit more salt. Don't know yet because we're not done. Alright, so the mole has all been integrated with the chicken broth. This is what it looks like. You do need some patience for this dish. It's not a dish that is done very quickly, but you're not going to be spending a whole lot of time either on it. So maybe this is probably about 45 minutes, maybe close to an hour it might take you also. Just make sure that you are simmering this sauce. If you had it any higher than a, like let's say medium heat or higher, this will be a big volcanic kind of bubbling mess. This can actually really burn you. I've been burned before by some splatter. This is very, very, very hot, and it feels like molten lava actually. So we are going to be placing the chicken in. It's time, and we're going to be putting in these pieces of chicken in one by one. Don't drop them in again. You don't want it to splatter because it is molten hot. And we're going to be placing these pieces of chicken in there like so. Now, if you wanted to debone it while the sauce was cooking, that's totally fine. If you wanted to cube it, again, great. I am placing the whole chicken and bone in it for this presentation. I've done it where I've made it shredded. I've cubed it. I don't like the shredded one as much as I do either whole or cubed. And if you're gonna do it cubed, don't cook it, don't overcook it. Right now what I'm doing is reheating the chicken in the mole because the mole is super hot. So that chicken's gonna come back up to temperature, and then we'll dish it on Dishing with Joe. So the mole is ready. Let's go ahead and dish it up. So here we have a piece of chicken. Let's go ahead and plate that on there. And let's go ahead and get another piece also. There we go. And get some more mole sauce on here. That looks really good. This is the thickness that I was looking for. There you go. There you have mole with Spanish rice. Alright, so let's go ahead and have a taste of this mole. So here we have the chicken. Let's get a good piece here. I added some sesame seeds. This is something that you usually find on a restaurant dish. So let's go ahead and taste that. That is so good. You can taste the complex of the mole. You can taste the chilies, the nuts. You can taste the peanut butter that I added, the chocolate. It's not too sweet, and it's not too spicy either. So you want a really good that balance both the spiciness and the sweetness. I know a lot of people don't like it too sweet. I don't like it really sweet, but this is not that sweet. Okay, so if you want to learn how I made the Spanish rice, check out my video. You can learn how to make it. If you enjoyed this video, give me a like, subscribe, and leave a comment. I'll check you out next time on Dishing with Joe.